A man decided to join a monastery where you were only allowed to say 2 words every 10 years. After 10 years in the monastery, the head monk summons him and says, "You've been with us for 10 years. What 2 words would you like to say?" The monk replies, "I'm hungry." So the head monk organizes for an extra ration to be given to him each day. After 20 years, the head monk calls him in again and asks, "What 2 words would you like to say?" The monk replies with, "Too cold." So the head monk organizes for him to get another blanket. After 30 years, the head monk calls him in and says, "What 2 words would you like to say?" The monk replies with, "Wanna leave." "I'm not surprised," the head monk says. "You've done nothing but complain since you got here." A new supermarket opened near my house. It has an automatic water mister to keep the produce fresh. Just before it goes on, you hear the sound of distant thunder and the smell of fresh rain. When you pass the milk cases, you hear cows mooing, and you experience the scent of fresh mown hay. In the meat department, there is the aroma of charcoal grilled steaks with onions. When you approach the egg case, you hear hens cluck and cackle, and the air is filled with the pleasing aroma of bacon and eggs frying. The bread department features the tantalizing smell of fresh baked bread and cookies. Needless to say, I don't buy toilet paper there anymore. A Texan walks into a bar in Ireland and clears his voice to address the crowd of drinkers. He says, "I hear you Irish are damn good drinkers. I'll bet $500 to anybody in here who can drink 10 pints of Guinness back to back." The room is quiet, and no one takes up the Texan's offer. One man even leaves. 30 minutes later, the same gentleman who left shows back up and taps the Texan on the shoulder. "Is your bet still good?" asks the Irishman. The Texan says yes, and asks the bartender to line up 10 pints of Guinness. Immediately, the Irishman tears into the pint glasses, drinking them all back to back. The other patrons cheer as the Texan watches in amazement. The Texan gives the Irishman his money and says, "If you don't mind me asking, where did you go for the past 30 minutes?" The Irishman replies, "Oh, I had to go to the pub down the street first to make sure I could do it." Pinocchio is in bed with his girlfriend doing what wooden boys do with their girlfriends. When it is over, he notices she is crying. He asks her what's wrong, and she says, "Oh, Pinocchio, you're the sweetest lover in the world. But every time we do it, I get splinters." Pinocchio is very upset and goes to see Geppetto to ask what he can do about this problem. Geppetto says, "Well, you know, my boy, maybe if you used a bit of sandpaper on your sensitive bits, it might help smooth over the problem, so to speak." A few days later, Geppetto is in the hardware store when he spies Pinocchio at the counter, ordering every type of sandpaper in existence. Fine sandpaper, coarse sandpaper, medium sandpaper, everything. Geppetto goes up to Pinocchio, pats him on the shoulder and says, "My boy, I bet you now have success with all the girls, right?" Pinocchio looks at Geppetto and replies, "Girls? Who the heck needs girls?" A man is leaning on a farm gate, watching the farmer round up some sheep when he realizes the farmer isn't using a sheepdog, but a pig. What's more, the pig, expertly maneuvering the sheep into a pen, has only 3 legs. "Excuse me," says the man to the farmer, "but why has that pig only got 3 legs?" "Let me tell you a bit about that pig," says the farmer. "That pig not only herds my sheep, but he also crows in the morning, milks the cows morning and night, and collects the eggs from the hens. And that's not all," he continued, "and that pig can count. He counts so well that he does all the farm accounts and fills in my tax forms." "What an amazing pig," says the man. "I'm not finished," says the farmer. 2 years ago, my farmhouse caught fire, and the pig called the fire brigade and then fetched water from the river to douse the flames. He then fought his way through the smoke to where my wife and children lay unconscious and dragged them from the burning house." "Wow," says the man. "That really is an incredible pig. But I still don't understand why he only has 3 legs." "Ah, well," says the farmer, "when you have a pig that is that special, you don't eat him all at once." The bartender asks the guy sitting at the bar, "What'll you have?" The guy answers, "A scotch, please." The bartender hands him the drink and says, "That'll be $5. The guy replies, "What are you talking about? I don't owe you anything for this." A lawyer sitting nearby and overhearing the conversation then says to the bartender, "You know, he's got you there. In the original offer, which constitutes a binding contract upon acceptance, there was no stipulation of remuneration." The bartender was not impressed, but says to the guy, "Okay, you beat me for a drink, but don't ever let me catch you in here again." The next day, the same guy walks into the bar. Bartender says, "What the heck are you doing in here? I can't believe you've got the audacity to come back." The guy says, "What are you talking about? I've never been in this place in my life." The bartender apologizes. "I'm very sorry, but this is uncanny. You must have a double." To which the guy replies, "Thank you, make it a scotch." The teacher asks the class to name big words that eat things and end in TOR. A little girl raised her hand and said, "Alligator." The teacher replied, "Very good, that is a very clever example." Then a little boy raised his hand and said, "Predator." The teacher replied, "Wonderful, that is an excellent example. Well done." Little Johnny raises his hand and blurts out, "Vibrator." The teacher nearly fell off her chair. She regained her composure and scolded little Johnny, "That is a big word, but it does not eat anything." To which little Johnny replied, "Yes, it does. I overheard my sister saying it eats batteries like there's no tomorrow." I took my old dad to the mall the other day to buy some new shoes. We decided to grab a bite at the food court. I noticed he was watching a teenager sitting next to him. The teenager had spiked hair in all different colors: green, red, orange, and blue. My dad kept staring at him. The teenager kept looking and would find my dad staring every time. When the teenager had had enough, he sarcastically asked, "What's the matter, old man? Never done anything wild in your life?" Knowing my dad, I quickly swallowed my food so that I would not choke on his response. Without batting an eyelid, he responded, "Got stoned once and screwed a peacock. I was just wondering if you were my son."